Welcome to Behind the Catch Fence. I'm your host, David Hoffman. I guess we can officially say, welcome to 2025. Man, it's crazy how a year can fly by. Well, with the new year comes new opportunities. Today, we have Monster Jam driver Jim Koehler on the show. You guys might know him by his nickname, Mr. Excitement, or by his pretty darn cool truck he drives in Avenger. Obviously, had to have this for cool purposes. Koehler, he's a two-time world freestyle champion, and he continues to drive his famed truck all across the world on the absolute ragged edge. Today, we talk about how his career began, the idea behind Avenger, and much more. So without further delay, sit back and relax and enjoy this episode with Jim Koehler. Take me back to the beginning. Just where did your love for racing initially begin?
As a child, my dad was a drag racer, so we have a speed shop, Dynamic Speed and Marine, and so I've always had racing in my blood. You know, my dad had the race car at the house, and it was just awesome to see, and that's where it all started, really. And I just been a gearhead since I was born, man. That's just how it works out.
And you mentioned with your dad being a drag racer, did you ever consider going that route, or kind
Um,
of what
I
was your
I
spot with it?
I did drag race. Like I did a lot of street racing. I went out to the track a lot with some of the cars I had, some of the street cars. Um, it's too flat, too straight. Not enough excitement for me. I like the more. You know, I I was a fan of Ivan Stewart and off road guys, those type of people. Getting to see them jumps and doing the craziness and that sort of stuff is what I liked. So. It wasn't monster trucks right out of the bat because when I was a kid, there was no monster trucks. But as they evolved onto the scene, then I thought, well, this is a path I could take, and that's how it worked into it.
Yeah, and kind of when did that idea to build a monster truck slash start a team come from?
So when I got graduated from high school, I needed a change. I had a lot of street cars and did a lot of street racing, and buddies of mine, a couple of them had four-wheel drive trucks. So I thought, I'll get a four-wheel drive. We'll do some off-road, ripping around, mud bogging out in the woods and whatever. So I ended up I bought a Dodge Ram Charger. I wanted either a Blazer, a Bronco, or a Ram Charger because I like the back seat aspect of it and whatnot. So I ended up getting a Ram Charger and built it up, ended up getting it on 44s and ripped around with everybody and had a good time. We used to go to the four-wheel jamborees. They used to have them in like Lima and Indy and Bloomsburg. And we go to all those. And then monster trucks started coming on the scene. And it was like, wow, these things are cool. They're the same thing that I have, just bigger. They weren't really technical like they are now. They were just kind of, trucks with bigger axles, still had leaf springs, still had all that stuff. And I thought, well, I could build one of these. This would be awesome. These guys are getting all the attention. Looks like they're having a great time. That would be great. So we started putting one of those together, a big leaf spring thing, and was a slow going process. And by the time the process got anywhere close to being where it was going to be, tube chassis came out and everything changed the whole industry. And all my buddies that were helping me and stuff, they said, you can't keep building this thing. It's just not, you know what I mean? It's not even going to be worth it. Once you get it done, it would just be a show truck, and that's not what you want to do. So we pushed it aside, made a few changes and ordered up some tubing and started bending tubing. And from that point, it took like 3.5 years to actually get the chassis done and get the truck done so we could, take it out and use it. And it was history from there, man. Once I got it done, I was having a blast with it, and it treated me good.
I was gonna say yeah, it makes sense for being 3 years because I'm sure there wasn't really a blueprint per se to here's how you build a monster truck and everything else.
Right. No, there wasn't. And like I had been going to a lot of the shows where the trucks were at and took a million pictures. And like Gary Porter with Carolina Crusher was pretty good with information, asking them questions about stuff. He was probably the nicest guy to talk to as far as trying to determine how to build it and what parts you needed and that sort of stuff. And he had that cantilever swing rear suspension that, the shocks were mounted into the chassis and just a cantilever arm. And I liked it. So on my original truck, that's what I had. And it lasted for a while. And then it locked up on me once in Minneapolis. And then I had no rear suspension. So it was not a good thing. It was almost like driving a leaf spring truck again. So we had to make changes, and it just kept evolving.
How did you end up coming up with the design for Avenger? I mean, obviously it's become one of the more popular trucks in all of the world, just in terms of monster trucks.
So my dad was a drag racer, right? And his drag car was called Avenger. And on the front of the drag car, it had a skull with flames coming out of it, but more like a 1960s design, 60s and 70s, wasn't up to date. And when I had a buddy doing the paint with me, I said, this is kind of the concept I want to follow. And he says, well, we're going to update the skull and the flames, and we're going to bring this more into the 90s. And that's when we started. So I know it's 2000 something now, but bring it back in, bring it up to the now instead of having it in the past. And I thought, okay, it is me, so it should be original to me. So let's see some designs. And we did some stuff, and I liked what we seen. So that's how that evolved into there. It started out as S10. We just wanted like a smaller body because we like the cage tinier to keep it tighter around the driver and less metal, less weight. A lot of thought went into all that stuff. And I like the S10s. But then once I was running for a while, I noticed that everybody has a pickup. They're all pickups. There were a couple different trucks out there that had different stuff. And I thought it was time for a change. And because after my dad's drag racing career was over, he's, street rod guy also. And growing up also, I was going to a lot of car shows and hot rod clubs and that sort of stuff where, all the hot rods, the 32 coupes and the 57 Chevys and all that stuff was part of my blood, and I loved the car with flames. So it just seemed for me natural if I could find one of these hot rods that I loved growing up, turn that into what my monster truck was. And we were able to, through VFN fiberglass, find a 57 Chevy. And they were willing to work with me, even though they seen how much I crashed it and wrecked bodies. They were still excited about it. And they're great dudes over there. They do a great job with fiberglass. So I went the 57 route, and people liked it. You know what I mean? And I liked the look of it, and it was pretty awesome. And then we evolved into making our own panels so that we could make it the style in which we wanted it. And I didn't want to have to VFN to keep up making every body every week because I was wrecking them pretty heavy. And we learned a lot. I mean, I when I first started doing monster trucks, I learned how to fabricate so I could build my own chassis. And then I was already building engines because we had a speed shop and I worked there full time. So I was doing all the porting and polishing on heads and doing the cylinder heads, doing all that stuff. So I knew about engines. So the engine part was no big deal. And I have a trans guy, Bewick. He does a lot of, Rich Bewick is my transmission guy. He does an awesome job with transmissions. And he's been doing my transmissions since the beginning. So for like 40 years now, even before monster trucks, he was doing transmissions for me. So he's been awesome as far as that goes. So the only other thing I needed to do was learn how to do fiberglass paint, that sort of stuff, because monster truck's demanding. You know what I mean? Week to week to week, you got to make it to the next show, and that's key. They don't necessarily need you to be the greatest truck out there, but you better be dependable and you better make it to the next show. If you're on the docket for being at that show, you need to be there. And dependability is key to get you to, be able to be at these big shows and doing the stadiums and that stuff. So I had to learn how to do a lot of stuff myself, because even though I had a lot of friends that could do it, you burn people out, man. When you roll over every weekend, and they have their own lives too, you know what I mean? And you're like, no, I need it by Friday. We got to be gone. We're going to the next show. They freak out, they're like, God dang, dude, we can't get it done that fast. And it's like, well, we have to. So it just evolved, and we just learned to do everything in house so that I didn't have to. I still depend on a lot of people, and a lot of people help me, but I can do it all myself if I had to. You know what I'm saying? If I had to make it happen, I can go in there any aspect of the truck I can do. So it's nice. But the team grew, and everybody on the team knows how to do a ton of stuff. So I delegate, and get people to do what we need them to do, and then I just fill in where the need is.
This may be an obvious question considering your personality, but how did you come up with the name Team Scream?
So I didn't come up with the name Team Scream or the nickname Mr. Excitement. See, that's the cool part. Like people that give themselves their own nickname, that's not good. You
Not
need
as
someone
cool.
to give it to you, right? You know what I mean? And I'm glad that Scott Douglas dubbed me Mr. Excitement instead of Mr. Boring or whatever. So that part worked out. Monster Jam itself, I think it was Dan Allen was one of the people there. He says, "Man, you guys are Team Scream because all you do is scream all the time and whatever." So he dubbed us that, and it made it, and it stuck. I thought, well, that's kind of a weird name, but then after you watch videos of yourself and you realize, yeah, I guess that's the team we are. That's where it came from, and it's like it's someone else gave it to you, then you earned it. You know what I mean? So we let it stick because if someone else thought it, then a lot of other people have to think it too.
And I've always been curious, and I've been watching this since like the Speed Channel days, back when it was on Speed and
Oh
everything.
yeah, I
Just
loved it. Loved
yeah,
this.
yes, I've always been curious. Is where did I mean, have you always kind of had that more like you're like yeah, like type of excitement, or kind of where'd that kind of originate from?
Yeah,
Because
no,
it's kind of taken off.
my whole life I was loud. My parents hated it. You know what I mean? My other two brothers are a little more conservative, but in the house when there's a disturbance, like I'm the guy that's the loud guy. I mean, you know, um, they're always like, tone it down. You're too loud. You're too crazy. You're too whatever. And that's just the nature that I had. I was fired up. I think just an adrenaline junkie. And I just think I had that natural charisma for being loud and exciting.
And how have you been able to harness that into I guess getting the best out of yourself when you're doing all these jumps and everything else and putting on a show?
Well, it just comes naturally, dude. I think that's the thing. Like there are been other drivers that do a really good job, but then they try to do what I do after I get out of the truck, and it looks just not natural. Where me, the adrenaline is just in me, and it's just has me fired up so much that when I get out of the truck, I'm fired, and I look into the crowd, and you see these people screaming and yelling and whatever, and it sends chills right up my spine. I know everybody out there. If you're listening to a certain song or a certain something and you get that chill up the back of your neck because it's bringing that emotion through you, I get that every time. Like, and when I get that, it just fires me up and just brings out everything that's natural. And then I just do what I'm feeling. It's not, I don't have to force it on. It just comes out, man.
What you just said might be the answer to my next question, but what do you feel is maybe the most gratifying aspect of what you do with Monster Jam and and everything with that?
Uh, honestly, it's the fans are a big part of the whole thing. I mean, I'm someone that likes to be in the spotlight and someone that likes to have the attention, and the fact that what we do in a monster truck turns people on and gets people fired up and gets them excited. I mean, that to me is the most satisfying, knowing that I built a truck and I'm driving it and people are excited to come see me. You know what I mean? People want my autograph and it's like crazy. Like I'll be going through Walmart and sometimes people will come up to you. It doesn't happen a ton, but it does happen. You can be at a restaurant eating and you'll see a family looking at you and looking at you. And you're like, yep, they know who I am. And the kid will, when they're leaving, the kid will sneak over and say, are you Jim Koehler with Avenger? And it's like, yeah, and you shake his hand or whatever. You might even do an autograph if they have a pen or something, because, you know, I don't always have a Sharpie on me. So some people think I do, but I don't always have that. But I'm happy to sign autographs when I see people. It fires me up when I'm places, if I'm getting fuel in the semi because we're rolling down the road and people see the rig and they come over and want to talk. I love it, man. It's it's why I do what I do. I if I was a recluse person where I didn't want to be out there, then I wouldn't be doing the line of work that I'm doing.
And yeah, you've been in the sport for a while now. Just in what areas? I mean, there's plenty of areas that it's grown. Just from your perspective, how have you seen it grow from when you started to now?
The technology, you know what I mean, and a lot of it is safety based, but like you want to keep the drivers safe, so the seat technology has gone from just a open bottom seat with like bungee cords holding your ass in its seat to keeping you safe to G-force foam, and the seats are molded to your body where everything is perfect. You know what I mean? Driving from one seat to another, the amount of difference. The truck, you could put one of these good seats in an old leaf spring truck, and those guys would be able to drive those leaf spring trucks a lot longer in their career because of what the seat is made out of and how well it takes care of you. And that was all just designed for safety. It really wasn't for performance, but the better you fit in a truck and the less it's beating you up, the better your performance can be. So it becomes a performance thing to make it better. And then the shock technology, that stuff gets better the longer travel, all the stuff, and engines and that sort of stuff. Everything gets better. The technology's just grown. You know what I mean? Now my truck started out light, super light. Like I was like 8,500 pounds on my first truck, and getting the MTRA to change their rules from 10,000 down to trying to get it down to 9,000 so I didn't have to put a ton of weight on my truck. Because you don't build it on a scale, right? You build it to follow their guidelines and their safety, trying to make it as safe as possible. And the weight is what the weight is. And I just kept questioning where the weight number came from. And they just grabbed it from what one of their trucks weighed. And they just said, well, this is, but it wasn't any research into, this would be the safest weight a truck needed to be. It was just, let's pick a number out of the sky and let's stick with it. And that's what they did. And I did get them to budge a little bit, but as time went on, my truck got heavier and heavier because I kept making parts that were stronger and beefier. And as things broke on my truck, I didn't just, like, if I broke a knuckle for the planetary, I didn't just go buy another planetary knuckle. I said, what do we need to do to make this better? How can we make it stronger? How can we make it better? And now we make our own knuckles. We make our own champagne glass, our own axle housings. We make everything in house, and everything is so much stronger and beefier that now my truck is 14,000 pounds. I'm probably one of the heaviest trucks that runs for Monster Jam, and one of the heaviest trucks out there, but it still flies just as high. It just takes the beating a lot more, a lot better than the other trucks do. So for me, it's durability now, where before I had the mentality lighter is faster, which it was. My old truck when the light one used to pull a power wheelie from a dead standstill on the good clay packed stuff. It would just pull the wheels, ride a wheelie right across the stadium. Now it won't do that because it weighs so much, but buddy, I can do anything I want, and odds are it's staying together. I mean, there's been many of freestyles where the truck has done crazy saves and all kinds of crazy jumps and crashes, and then I can back into my stall waiting if they need me for an encore. You know what I mean? Because there's nothing wrong with it. It's like, let's put fuel in it and we can do this again. Doesn't happen all the time, because there's times where the stuff, one little part, you know what I mean? You can get a rod end on any vehicle to break, and it causes catastrophe. So I've had my share of those, but as far as making it as dependable as possible, to me, that's key, as strong as it can be so you can do more. You know what I mean?
And kind of with the growth of what I've kind of noticed, especially when it comes to like freestyle or something, is now, I mean, backflips before then obviously weren't really I guess, much of a thing, but now it's, you're doing it every single event. Just is before then, had you ever done something like that in a monster truck before?
A backflip?
Yeah.
Um, no, I mean, like, I never even would have thought it was possible. Just like I did, there was a time, now everybody's doing these nose wheelies and stoppies. And I was at one show somewhere and it was arena with dirt. And came around the corner really fast, hit a jump, landed, and I was like almost going to hit the retractables, and I had locked up the brakes, and for some reason the rear had bounced, and it put me up almost, and it probably wasn't even that vertical, but it felt like, oh my God, this is a stoppie. This is totally cool. But you never thought to repeat it. You know what I mean? It was never in my thoughts. And then these guys that come up with that stuff, it's like, dang, man, this is pretty awesome. The crazy stuff that they can do with these trucks. The backflip thing, I would have never thought you would do a backflip in a monster truck in a million years. You know what I mean? And I'm not, I know the fans love them. I still get nervous doing them. You know what I mean? Because the potential for just destruction is there. You know what I mean? And the container one was not what I like to do because you went a lot higher and it wasn't, I don't know, it just seemed too risky. And I liked the 8-pack when they started coming out with the 8-pack because it was a little more unpredictable. So then you could do something that put you in a position without wrecking the truck. It put you in a position to sort of maybe have to save it or drive out of it or do something crazy. So it added to the element, but it never scores good. Like that 8-pack is awesome, but the fans like the bigger backflip better for some reason. So it makes it, more advantageous to hit the big one because you want a better score, you want to do better. And that's how I started doing the bigger one. And once you get it dialed in, it's really pretty good. They got a science going now, you know what I mean? And there was a time when I would go out with I had a 8-foot stick with an angle finder on it, and I would measure like the cup of a ramp, the angle of the ramp, and I would pick ramps, mark it down on my sheet what they were, and when I was entering freestyle, I would hit them, and then I would be like, okay, this angle with this type of cup, if I find that again, I could get really big air off it because it makes the truck level out perfect. It does this, it does that, and that's how I kind of learned. Some people can do it just by looking at ramps, but I like to more scientific where I want to make sure that the ramp is what it is. So some of the years at the World Finals, when you see me hit that big air, I already knew that was the jump for big air. I just had to get it right in my timing of when what jump I wanted to hit it, when I wanted to hit it during my run. And I knew that it would do what it would do. Once in a while, I think with the white 57 body, I went nose over and it landed on the very back and stuck straight up and down. Sometimes it doesn't work out in the landing. If that dirt on the landing would have been a little tougher, it would have bounced and put me back down on the wheels, and it probably would have been a killer run after that. But not that it wasn't a bad run, it was, but it's one of those things that your science is there, but you can't 100% judge the dirt.
And final two questions. You mentioned with kind of like the science of everything. What goes into, I guess, creating and making a great freestyle happen? How much calculations are you doing, whether it's before or during like the run?
So for the most part, we like to look at the track and just dissect every jump on how you would hit it if you get faced at that jump, because I can't plan out, I'm going to do this one, then this one, then this one, then this one, then this one, because the truck sometimes will bounce a different way. And if you have a mindset that you got to hit jump number 2, but jump number 1 sent you aiming away from number 2, you waste a lot of time trying to get back to number 2. So you got to pretty much try and hit what's in front of you to keep the momentum going and to keep, what you want. And you can follow a pattern a little bit. Some of the tracks are better than others for freestyle, but you just have to know what each jump is. And then you have a guy, you're like, for me, Tyler's in my ear on the radio telling me my time, like, I've got 30 seconds in. Okay, now I can turn it up a little bit more because now we're getting scored. And then he tells you when you have maybe 50 seconds or 45 seconds left. So now I know I got maybe 2 more jumps before I got to get to the backflip if I'm planning on backflipping this time through, or whatever stunt that I wanted to do that puts you at the edge where you may not recover from it. And so, I mean, as far as technical stuff on freestyle, that's about it. You plan out the different hits, and then you go out there and do it. Some of the stuff doesn't work out. Some of the stuff does. And you ad lib a little bit too, because if I'm going out ninth, there's 8 people in front of me that may have seen something on the track that I didn't see. And once I see, I could be like, well, I can hit that, and I can hit that a lot faster and harder to make it a little bit wilder and crazier, and go from there. So you have to adapt to on the fly with all that stuff.
And final question is, he celebrated 25 years of Avenger not too long ago. I think it was 2 years ago at this point. How special is it for you to continue to build this team, build, build this fan base and everything else, just knowing that you started it just how many years ago and kind of from the ground up, and now to see what it is today?
Yeah, it's pretty awesome, because really when I started it, I thought, I'm going to do, 5 or 6 shows a year, just having fun with it as just a side thing. And it became more of a career. And then, I had Chris Bergeron with Brutus, we were, teammates. And when he decided he was going to retire, I'm like, well, I'll just, buy his trucks off of him, and I'll make the team even bigger. And, it's awesome to see how it grown, and the fact that the team is as strong as it is, and does as well as we do. And we're keep getting bigger and bigger, you know what I mean? And plan on keep getting stronger and stronger. And for me to be doing it as many years as I have, I think I was getting to the point where I was like, well, I'm probably only a few more years left. But then once my kids started driving, I'm like, oh no, I got a lot of years left. Like, these guys fired me up. The amount of work and effort that everybody puts into the trucks, wanting to see the team do better, and the fact that the team just unites when it comes to first quarter. And we've been blessed with keeping all 4 trucks on the same tour, so everybody can put all hands on deck to make sure that all the trucks are 100%. Everybody has their assignments of what we have to do, and it's awesome to be a solo in the beginning to, a 4-truck team now. And I mean, I'm not saying I would never go more trucks, but right now having 4 trucks at the top of their game, I think, is how I like it to be. I don't want to get too many trucks and then just have trucks just going through the motions. You know what I mean? I want everybody on my team, and I tell everybody, you run that thing as hard as you can. I'll worry about getting the parts. You worry about fixing it. That's kind of the motto I have. If you break it, be there to fix it. Not everybody will help, but you have to be ready to put the time in if you're going to run it hard. And they all do. I mean, Joe, I think, won 6 freestyles last year in El Toro Loco. Chris won an overall and a couple other freestyles and some other stuff. Corey did, won some skills and some other stuff. I mean, we did really well last year. Actually, they all did better than I did. I think independent wise on a stadium tour, they rated 1 through 3, and I rated 6 out of 12, independent trucks that were on the stadium tour. So I thought the team did awesome. And I think this year is going to be even more insane, because we're geared up. We're ready. We put a lot of extra parts right now. They're out in the shop working right now. We're trying to get extra motors done, just so much extra stuff so that we're ahead of the game, so we can concentrate on having a good time and rocking it out, and not have to worry about, do we have these parts? Do we got to build a motor, or what do we got to do? We can just concentrate on rocking it.
Well, Jim, I appreciate you taking the time. It's been a lot of fun talking with you, and hopefully next season goes well. Have a Merry Christmas, and good luck the rest of the next season then.
For sure, man. You too. Hopefully, you get some views with this, and your thing keeps growing and everything gets awesome. And maybe I'll be on again, and another 5 years when I'm at 30 years. You know what I mean? Who knows?
Thanks for tuning in to our interview with Jim Koehler. As someone who grew up watching Monster Jam on speed, Koehler was always that guy that you knew would deliver excitement and carnage with every single run, whether it was good or bad. It was just so much fun. Now, it was a real treat hearing the backstory behind Avenger and everything that goes into running a successful team in the sport with Team Scream. We'll for sure have to have him on again, definitely a lot sooner than the team's 30th anniversary, and I think 3 or 4 years. Well, that's all the time we have for today's show. Make sure to follow us on X and Instagram at Behind Catch for more exclusive content. The year is so young, so we're just getting started. Thanks again for watching. Go enjoy the rest of your day, and I'll catch you guys later.